analysis. Today is the 24th of March, and before we get into the usual news pieces on Iran, one thing that marks today is the World Tuberculosis. Alright, so if you've already been to the newspaper for today, you must have seen a large number of articles, editorials on tuberculosis today. So we will also be covering that. But before we get into that, coming back to Donald Trump. Now, yesterday was a significant, basically an upkeep or a significant aspect that took place in the war, and that was that Donald Trump had announced a 5-day ceasefire in the US-Iran war. All right. Now, the reasons for this ceasefire can naturally be the oil and gas crisis. Now, till now, the war was only limited to the West Asian region, and the parties involved, basically, the other countries were not bombed, the other countries did not see loss of life. But the one thing that other countries were seeing is oil and gas prices, which naturally resulted in massive pointing of fingers towards the Donald Trump administration. Couldn't take so much of criticism, hence ordered a ceasefire. One thing being that. The second is that yesterday's news pieces, we did cover one thing which said that he is calling for, he basically threatened Iran that if in the next 48 hours Iran does not open the Strait of Hormuz, then US is going to bomb and undertake destruction of a large number of all the power plants in Iran, naturally resulting in a shortage of electricity supply or basic destruction of electricity in Iran, okay, which Iran also retaliated by saying that Iran would not do any such thing, and Iran is going to further extend closing of the Strait of Hormuz. All right. So these reasons became one of the key pointers or reasons due to which Donald Trump unilaterally announced a ceasefire. All right. He announced a ceasefire, and we did see news just few minutes later that Israel had undertaken bombing of certain regions in Iran. And also, we will see that he did say things like US had a wonderful talk with Iran. All right. So all of and after these talks only did US announce a 5-day pause on striking of energy infrastructure and other regions in Iran, to which Iran issued a statement saying that no such dialogue has taken place between Iran and the United States of America. All right. Okay. Then another thing that happened yesterday was that our Prime Minister, he addressed the Lok Sabha finally on this entire issue after 24 days of war. All right. So naturally, like every time that India sees or comes amidst any international crisis like this, India does issue statements like call for dialogue diplomacy as the only solution, negotiating talks between the two countries, bringing to a peaceful conclusion the differences and war and everything between the two countries that are at war. All right. So the same thing the Prime Minister did yesterday also. Other thing that was important about yesterday's address of the Parliament is that he naturally mentioned the Hormuz blockage, and we also saw two other ships that had come to India yesterday, and these ships were the ones which were carrying LPGs. So we had Jag Vasant and Fine Gas that have transited through the Strait of Hormuz and would be carrying around 93,000 ton of LPG. All right. So the government again is trying to undertake significant steps to combat this entire energy crisis that is happening in India. But then again, there is nothing much that we can do because we did not take any side in the war. All right. Iran let our ships pass through. Iran did issue a statement that India is our friend, but then we have not taken any sides in the war. We did not criticize US actions on Iran. We did not criticize Israeli actions on Iran, although we have extended humanitarian help. All right. Humanitarian help in the sense that we did undertake evacuation of Indian citizens. That is last year when we had the 12-day war. India undertook the an evacuation operation codenamed Operation Sindhu. Okay, so the same operation has been undertaken today as well. All right, the same operation, not today, but this time in the war as well. All right, okay. Then this news piece basically says that Trump undertook this entire killing of Ayatollah Khamenei, Ali Khamenei, after he discussed it on call with Netanyahu. Now, this one call was scheduled to take place between them on Saturday night, but it got preponed on Saturday morning, and then Israel was that one country who had undertaken the entire planning of the attack since many years and finally got it executed through US. So we also did see a lot of statements being given by the US officials themselves, who said, like Joe Kent, who was the erstwhile director of their counterterrorism agency, he did say that this entire war that US is undertaking in this region is for their own vested interests, is not for their own interests, but under Israeli pressure. And also he did say things like US poses no direct imminent threat from Iran. Okay, this is one thing to look out for. So these are innumerable articles on the same thing that we just discussed as of now. And then naturally we do have attacks that are being undertaken by Iran on different countries, and these different countries are not being targeted because Iran is against these countries or Iran has a direct war with these countries, but Iran is undertaking attacks on UAE, undertaking attacks on Bahrain and other countries in Saudi Arabia and other countries in the Gulf region, because these countries, they host US military bases. Okay, and these countries, they have undertaken a basic accord, a basic agreement with the United States of America, and this agreement is known as Abraham Accord. All right, so Abraham Accords were brokered by Donald Trump in 2020, and the purpose of brokering this Abraham Accord was to basically establish peaceful relations between US, Israel, and four other Gulf countries like Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, and Saudi, just to enable US to establish its military bases there. Also, Iran has put forth conditions to bring to a conclusive end the war, and one of the conditions also suggests that US has to dismantle all of its military bases in the Gulf region, specifically those around Iran, which could pose a significant threat to Iran's national and international security in the near future. And Iran is also seeking concerted promises that US will not undertake any attack on Iran in the near future. All right, so this is everything that you have to keep in mind. Now, with the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, then recently also the head of their military department, after that, now the entire onus to continue the war and give basic, directions to the other wings and factions of the war has now been given to Kalibaf. Now, Kalibaf is the speaker of the Iranian parliament, Muhammad Bakir Kalibaf, and he has been now playing a central role in the entire war. Okay. All right. Then International Energy Agency, an agency and organization which was established after the 1973 oil crisis in the world, which naturally took place after the Yom Kippur War of 1973. So the head of International Energy Agency, Pati Birol, is what I wanted to flag for you. The name of the head of International, oh God, head of International Energy Agency. He has also said that now the oil crisis or the oil shock that the global economy will face could be worse than the oil shock that took place in the 1970s. All right. Why? Because then maybe the global world order was not as much dependent on energy or oil resources as they are today. And plus, the previous war did not see destruction of massive LNG sources of the world like Ras Laffan, and south pars that the world has seen in this war. Okay, so again a good piece of news that you must know. All right, now this piece of news very important because of the final implementation of Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. Okay, so this is one thing that I want to flag for you all today. First, Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. Okay, Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. This Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam is a bill that was passed by the parliament in the year 2023. Okay, what is the purpose of the bill? The purpose of this bill is to provide 33% or 1/3 of the total seats for reservation for women in the Lok Sabha, Legislative Assembly of all states, and legislative assemblies of the Union Territory of Delhi. Not Puducherry, only Delhi. Okay. This particular bill, this particular act was brought in specifically to increase the number of elected women in the legislative assemblies and the Lok Sabha. All right. Now, again, if you see here, this bill only seeks to provide reservation to women in the Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies, not to women in the local bodies. Why not to women in local bodies? Because local bodies like the panchayats and the municipalities, okay, panchayats and municipalities, these are our local bodies, and both of these local bodies, they already have 1/3 reservation for women. Okay, so that is why the bill seeks to provide reservation only to women in Lok Sabha and legislative assemblies of states and legislative assemblies of the Union Territory of Delhi. Okay, now another condition for this reservation was that this reservation would be implemented after the delimitation exercise is being undertaken in the country. Okay, now what is delimitation? Delimitation is the process of demarcating territorial constituencies, demarcating areas outlining a significant number of population which will be represented by one MP in the Lok Sabha or one MLA in the legislative assemblies. Okay, so the government said that after the next delimitation exercise that is being undertaken in the country, then this particular amendment will be implemented. Okay, now the delimitation exercise was set to take place in the year 2026, that is this year. This delimitation in the year 2026 was supposed to happen after we get the census data of 2021. But then we did not get the census data in 2021 because of COVID. The census exercise is being conducted this year, and we are going to get the full-fledged census data in the year 2027. So naturally, the next Lok Sabha elections, which are due in 2029, delimitation will take place after the census data is available to us and before the next Lok Sabha elections. All right. So naturally, the census data will, delimitation will take place somewhere in 2027, 2028. And on this data basis, the government is anticipating to increase the maximum number of seats in the Lok Sabha to 813. Okay, 816, to increase the maximum number of seats to 816, and 1/3 of 816 seats would be reserved for women. That is, now around 273 seats will be reserved for women in the Lok Sabha. All right. So very important. Please go through it. Very important to keep in mind the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, its provisions, what is delimitation, its constitutional provisions. Constitutional provisions, Article 82 for delimitation of seats in the Lok Sabha and Article 170 for delimitation of seats in the legislative assemblies. All right. Very important. Please keep it in mind. Much anticipated question in the exam. Okay. The same piece of article in the Hindu also. All right. Then the BJP has congratulated our Prime Minister on becoming India's longest serving head of government. So he has served office for a total of 8,931 days. He's broken the previous record of 8,930, which was of Sikkim's Chief Minister Pawan Chamling. All right. So keep in mind Pawan Chamling. Keep in mind the number of days that Prime Minister Modi has served the office. All right, served in the office. Then next, Sonam Wangchuk recently been released from prison. He was detained under the National Security Act of 1918 on supposed grounds of inciting violence in Ladakh. All right, he had submitted a plea against the people. He had submitted a plea in the Supreme Court against his detention under the NSA, which has been dismissed by the Supreme Court. Okay. Then the center has sought amendments to the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. What is this Foreign Contribution Regulation Act? The Foreign Contribution Regulation Act simply seeks to regulate, keep a check and monitor the funds that are donated to NGOs from abroad. All right. So what is this bill trying to establish now? The bill will first thing that they are going to do is appoint a designated authority to take over, manage or dispose assets created out of foreign funds by an NGO. Then the second thing that it wants to do is that it wants to expand the definition of key functionaries of an NGO, which will not only be inclusive of an office bearer or director, but will also include terms like directors, include terms like partners, trustees, etc. And also they have increased and basically said that the FCRA, they receive around 22,000 crore of funds annually. Okay, the bill also seeks to introduce a maximum imprisonment under Foreign Contribution Regulation Act offences from 5 years to 1 year. Okay. All right. Then the Reserve Bank of India. The Reserve Bank of India also has taken into consideration the entire crisis, economic instability that India is going through because of the West Asian crisis and the war that is going on in West Asia. And the RBI has said that the government maybe needs to create an economic stabilization fund, which will provide further fiscal headroom and buffer to the government to tackle such economic shocks which undertake or which hit the country because of such external wars. All right. Okay. Then North Korea's Kim Jong-un was declared winner of whatever limited elections that they took place, with his party securing more than 99% of the total votes, and he has also been reappointed as president of the state affairs in North Korea. Okay. All right. Then in the budget, in the speech by the Prime Minister yesterday in the Lok Sabha, the Prime Minister had pointed out the fact that India's total petroleum reserves have the capacity to store 5.33 million tons of crude oil. Okay. So he said that we already have in storage 5.33 million tons of crude oil. However, this particular article tells us that out of the 5.33 million ton of strategic oil capacity that we have, 36% is empty. So a total of how much do we have right now? It is 3.37 million tons of oil. Okay. All right. Then today is the World Tuberculosis Day, and on World TB Day, IIT Bombay, they have out basically given certain reasons as to why India has been unable to eliminate tuberculosis. All right. Now, elimination of tuberculosis was an agenda of India, that India sought to eliminate TB by 2025. Naturally, the goal was not met. This goal was set up 5 years before the Sustainable Development development goals entire idea of eliminating TB by 2030, but then naturally our goal was very much ahead of our capacities and we couldn't achieve it. However, IIT Bombay has given us certain reasons as to why we have been unable to do so. Okay, so they've said that we have been unable to eliminate TB because firstly, all the TB drugs that we are actually giving our patients in the country, the TB bacteria, that is Mycobacterium tuberculosis, it has developed antimicrobial resistance, all right, in the sense that it has somehow become immune to the drugs that are administered to fight TB to the Indian patients. And second is that the entire virus or bacteria that undertakes or spreads TB, it has also somehow, distorted its shape and form and has started easily penetrating into the Indian patient's immune system. Okay. All right. Then coming to the editorial for today. Again, it is a good take on the TB, on the entire TB tuberculosis program that India has, the world has, and what are the various ways, methods through which we could eliminate TB. It also talks about the types of tuberculosis that people suffer from. Very importantly, keep in mind the World TB Day of 24th of March. All right. So we had a target, certain facts that you have to keep in mind, that India had a target of TB Mukt Bharat, TB Mukt Bharat by 2025, which was 5 years ahead of the Sustainable Development Goals target to achieve a TB Mukt world by 2030. Then this year, it is very clear that our health minister JP Nadda, he has also basically today rolled out a 100-day program. Okay, a 100-day program of TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan. All right, this year 2024, the theme is yes, we can end TB. Okay, yes, we can end TB. Then just one more thing about TB, that tuberculosis, Mycobacterium tuberculosis is the bacteria which causes TB, and it was found for the first time by Robert Koch. Okay, so do keep his name in mind, Robert Koch. Okay, all right. Then Grim Future, again an article on entire energy take of India, and also this article seeks to give us an idea into India's performance in India's core industries. All right. So one term used here is India's core industries. So when we look at core industries, India has a total of, or recognizes a total of 8 core industries. Core industries simply implies those very important industries in the country which form the basic backbone of the country's economic activities. All right. So these core industries simply entail or imply coal, petroleum, natural gas, cement, electricity, steel, fertilizer, okay, etc. So these sectors which are very imperative to undertake administration and economic stability in any region has been was already dwindling significantly as per the core industries index, and then further a shock was administered to these core industries because of the entire West Asian crisis. Okay, so this is what this article talks about. Then this article gives us a good insight into Nepal's now foreign policy under the new PM of Nepal. So the new PM of Nepal, Balendra Shah, he is the head of Rashtriya Swatantra Party, a party which was formed or established in 2022 and with zero political history. The party has won a landslide victory. Okay. Now, what are the challenges that come in front of him? One is naturally his entire alignment of having a minimalistic approach, that he will not be engaging too much in multi-global world order. He is going to keep Nepal first over other countries, and secondly, he is trying to establish a balanced approach. He is moving away from an Akhand Bharat or similar to an Akhand Bharat initiative. He wants to create a greater Nepal. And other than that, that previously we have seen that under the liberalist ideologies or liberal parties of Nepal, they tend to have more, better relations with India. The Communist Party had better relations with China. However, no such inclinations have been shown by him as yet. He seeks to establish a balance. Okay. Then naturally, the article also talks about one thing which is known as Roti Beti Ka Nata. So Roti Beti Ka Nata, that we enable, we provide a lot of employment opportunities to Nepal, in the sense that we have a lot of Nepali soldiers in Indian army. We also provide them trade facilities by giving them access to our port. And Beti or simply implies the traditional epic relation of Ramayana, that it was believed that goddess Sita had her home in Nepal. Okay. All right. Then this article basically draws our attention to the fact that World Meteorological Organization, which celebrated its day yesterday, 23rd of March, we celebrate World Meteorological Day, commemorating the establishment of World Meteorological Organization in 1950 on 23rd of March. So yesterday, the World Meteorological Organization published its latest state of climate report, which basically said that, which gave us findings of the world's entire climate change order, etc., for the last 10 years, and said that carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is about 50% higher than pre-industrial levels. All right. And basically said that carbon dioxide reached its highest level in the last 2 million years, and methane and nitrous oxide in an at least 800,000 years. So basically, higher concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere simply entail that higher or greater changes in climate change is naturally anticipated. Okay. Then coming to the news in brief, just few days back, I did take it up for you all that India is set to host the indoor games in Bhubaneswar in the year 2028. All right. World Indoor Athletics Championship in Bhubaneswar in Odisha in 2028. Just a reflagging of it. Then Sebastian Corda was the person who was playing against Carlos Alcaraz in Miami Open. So Carlos Alcaraz had won 2 games, and in the third round of it, he lost to Sebastian Corda. Okay. Then today is National Martyrs Day or Shaheed Divas. All right. Now, yesterday I had asked you all to tell me in the comments that why do we commemorate 23rd of March as Shaheed Divas. All right. So 23rd of March is commemorated as Shaheed Divas because on 23rd of March 1931, India saw the hanging of 3 revolutionary leaders, Sukhdev, Rajguru, and Bhagat Singh. Okay, the 3 revolutionaries, they were members of Hindustan Socialist Republican Association, and they were charged of killing John Saunders. Okay, John Saunders, whom they believe was the person who was responsible for undertaking Lathi charge on Lala Lajpat Rai. They were hung on 23rd of March 1931, and before that in February we had Chandrasekhar Azad, who killed himself, shot himself dead while he was helping his friends, the 3 of them, escape police capture, arrest from Allahabad in Alfred Park. Okay, so that is how we celebrate Martyrs Day. And yesterday I also told you all that this is the second Martyrs Day that we celebrate in India. The first Martyrs Day is on 30th of January to commemorate the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. Right? So this was all for today's newspaper analysis, and I'll see you all tomorrow with the next. Thank you.